Live from Austin, Texas, this is the Plutopia News Network. Our guest tonight is Jessica Soukup, author and transgender activist. The Not Ready for Cable News players are here. Maggie Duvall, John Lebkowski, Scoop Sweeney, that's me, and tonight's fearless leader for our happy hour, Susie Sheeler.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Thanks for being here, Jessica. Yay. I feel like I haven't seen you in forever.
It's
been a week.
So yeah.
So I'm going to introduce you real quick, just because there are lots of people who fail to know you. Jessica Soukup is a Texas-based advocate and educator working to bring equal rights and social justice for transgender and non-binary people to the forefront of our social consciousness. Jessica is a frequent keynote speaker and educator on women's empowerment, transgender rights, LGBTQIA allyship. And she recently did a TED Talk, Overcoming the Dystopia of Transgender Childhood, that you can watch on YouTube. In 2017, she published her first book, He, She, They, Us, Essential Information, Vocabulary, and Concepts to help you become a better ally to the transgender and gender diverse people in your life. Jessica is currently serving as vice chair of the board of Transgender Education Network of Texas, also known as TENT, and is recently on the board of GLSE in Austin. Welcome. You have a lot on your resume, lady.
Well, that was a lot. You're right.
It's good though. It's all true.
Well, and it is. Thank you. So, but I just want to jump back to the beginning. Does that mean that I'm a not ready for cable news guest?
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure. I want to check my status.
I like that. We'll have to add that to
yes.
Okay.
So, Jessica, there was I think some kind of a Supreme Court decision that just happened recently, something about transgender people, gay people. What's going on with that?
You don't play stupid very well. Yeah. So just recently, 3 Supreme Court cases were decided, and they decided that Title VII applies to LGBTQIA people, and it specifically includes transgender people. The trans case that they're talking about is one from, it was filed a number of years ago by Amy Stevens. She worked in a mortuary and then transitioned and then was fired for being trans, very specifically for being trans. And Amy Stevens actually died about 3 weeks ago, and so wasn't alive to hear that really dramatic victory.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's just there's a video of her circulating around the internet when she just basically talked about it. She knew she was dying, and so talked about the case. It's it's simultaneously heartwarming and heart-wrenching. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's such a some people have compared the case to the gay marriage case, the Obergefell case, because of how broad-reaching this decision is likely to be. The specific case only covers, the specific decision really only talks about Title VII, which, like I said, that's the EEOC, that's the civil rights protections for trans and for LGBTQ people. But because the decision, what the Supreme Court decided was that any discrimination against LGBTQI people is because of sex, and so that's because they framed it that way. And most of the laws talk about discrimination against sex. It very likely flows.
Okay. So, what does that mean necessarily? That means that gays, queers, transgender folks can't be fired, and does this also touch on the evictions for being or not being rented to, for example?
Well, see, so those are different laws, right? So I can no longer be fired for being trans, but technically the Supreme Court decision was not on housing discrimination. That's a different law. But the way that housing law is written is written the same. So it's very likely that there will be a cascade of these types of decisions that that support trans and LGBTQ rights.
In direct conflict with this decision, of course, are two things. One is the trans military ban, and the other is this new rule that I guess went into effect already, that I guess bars transgender folks from getting health care. Is that the way I'm reading? Am I reading that right?
It doesn't bar trans people from getting health care, but it enables discrimination against trans people because of based on their gender identity. So there's long been a problem for trans people in healthcare, and it's ironically that trans identities are well supported by the major medical associations and the American Medical Association, American Academy of Pediatrics. All of these big organizations support trans rights, but the doctors haven't received much training, and there is a lot of discrimination amongst individual doctors. And so we often talk about something we call trans broken arm syndrome, which means we show up at the doctor's office with a broken arm, and they blame it on our transition, our hormone replacement therapy. But then they blame everything on hormone replacement therapy. So you could stub your toe, oh my God, hormone replacement therapy. So I'm actually part of the Central Texas Transgender Health Alliance, and we train doctors to support trans patients, or other doctors do. I'm not training any doctors. I have done some front office training. But
Jessica, the Texas legislature has a fixation with bathroom bills. Do you think this has effectively killed the efforts for a bathroom bill, or are they going to find some other devious way to do their evil?
Well, so I don't think it affects the bathroom bill specifically, but then that's not likely the next discriminatory bill that's coming at us. The next discriminatory bill is likely to be discrimination against really trans kids. Their bills have been introduced across the country. There's that ALEC organization that then copies bills and sends them out to all the state legislatures to enact. All the conservative state legislators to enact. Anyway, one of the laws that they've been circulating has to do with trans kids and blocking trans kids from receiving any sort of gender affirming medical care prior to age 18. But somebody's typing a comment.
There is a comment. It's from Mickey Lee Bayless. I hope that I'm pronouncing it right.
It's a friend of mine.
And
I think so.
And she says, and employment is only protected by this ruling for people who work for companies that have 15 or more employees. Companies and businesses who don't have more than 15 employees aren't held to Title VII. No. So
that's the same type of exclusion that exists. Like, so there are some people who are not covered, right? So Mickey, he, him pronouns, by the way.
Okay. Sorry, Mickey.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mickey.
I'm sorry, Mickey.
Anyway, so there are some companies not covered, anybody not covered by EEOC, and so that's why the military is not covered by that's why this doesn't affect the military, because the military is not covered by EEOC. They're not protected from EEOC laws. But some of the predictions are that that's all of a sudden the military is then out of step. So
right, and if it's a federal law,
yeah,
it seems that it would have some bearing on the military.
You would think. You'd
like
it.
Yeah, you would like it.
In a perfect world.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, federal laws tend to carve out special interests, such as the military, things that they want to retain control over.
one of the reasons that they gave for enacting the ban is the extraordinary costs, and that would go along with that, and the effectiveness of troop readiness, I guess is what it is, would be somehow hindered by transgender military personnel. And I'm wondering if you could speak to that.
Let me talk to a couple of those things because they annoy me. So, first of all, not all trans people want surgeries. So let's just start with that. So if you're talking like hormone replacement therapy, I'm a trans woman, I'm on hormone replacement therapy. It costs me more in needles than it does in actual hormones for each month. I pay off of insurance, I would pay $50, which for something that lasts me 5 months. So then it costs me $10 a month for hormones. Like I said, I would spend more in needles. So that's hardly an argument for trans men or any people who would be on testosterone. That is somewhat more expensive. That may be $30 a month, but those are not tremendous costs. The things that they often focus on are things like surgeries, but we have, for medical care, people have surgeries all the time. And these surgeries are not dramatically more than those surgeries. When people need vital medical care, they get surgery. And on a regular basis, we provide benefits to people who join the military. We give them free education. We give them health care. And part of health care is medically necessary care. So let them get their surgeries. It doesn't affect medical readiness. You get better. It's fine.
Do they regard this as an elective surgery?
It's okay. So the answer is it is not an elective surgery because it is medically necessary for the health of the trans person to receive that surgery. Now, do people label it an elective surgery? Well, yes.
My question, yeah.
Yeah, yes, they do, but they also label as an elective surgery a variety of other things that we know are not elective surgeries. Things like replacement after a mastectomy. You know, that's not an elective surgery. That's
hysterectomy sometimes too.
Very much so, yeah.
So there are also civilians who work for the military. Will this somehow bleed over into that? The denial of hiring trans folks, or do you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so it would seem to me logically that those corporations would not. The people who work there are not enlisted in the military, so those corporations would seem, and assuming they're more, as Mickey pointed out, than I think he said a dozen employees, then the EEOC laws would apply to them.
In the case of federal civil service employees, I'm not sure how that would be affected. Knowing the government, I'm sure there'd be the hair splitters in Congress would come up with something to keep them out.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Again, a lot of this is that definition of sex discrimination. That whole thing started like in the late 80s. There was a lawyer, and she's a kick-ass lawyer, so she's winning all these cases, and meanwhile all the guys around her were earning partner, but she was not. So then she asked about it and was told that if maybe she dressed a little more feminine and put some lipstick on or whatever, then maybe she could make partner. So she's a kick-ass lawyer, so she sued, and it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court decided that Michelle's telling us that
yeah, she is.
Okay. All our friends are watching.
I know, mine too. This is from Michelle Owai Lapilio. The VA is federal, so they're okay. Okay. Got it. Okay.
I was just talking to a woman the other day. She was working to expand the support to get VA benefits in Wisconsin covered by get trans medical care covered by the VA in Wisconsin. Michelle, do you happen to know why she needs to do that if it's already covered by the VA?
That would be interesting. And I wonder what other, well, I wonder what, well, wait, let's see what Michelle says. She should be here.
She should be here. We should call her. She's awesome.
She'd love it.
You would love it. Hey, yeah. Surprise. You're on a news show. Anyway.
How many, what's the percentage of trans persons in the military? Is there some kind of guesstimate?
Well, there are estimates. I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I can tell you that 25% of trans people served in the military. So that's twice as a percentage of the population. Twice as many trans people go in the military as cisgender people.
Wow.
That's I'm just so glad it's become accepted and people aren't running from it anymore, except for our government, clearly.
Evangelical people.
Yeah, well, again, government, right?
Right now.
Right now.
Well, I'm sure they're proud of their leader.
Well, that particular administration is definitely at odds with the LGBTQ community. I mean, there's just that. And in fact, he said, I think Trump said that this decision's been made and now we just have to live with it, which is a lot of support there.
Thanks. I'm glad you're living with it. I'm sure it was affecting you a lot before.
Exactly. So you wrote a book and you just gave a TED Talk.
I did.
Oh, Michelle says that's a good question. Thank you. And you're working on allyship at Southwest Texas, right? Or it's not Southwest Texas anymore. I can't even believe I did that throwback. Texas State.
It's true.
And so what is your main lesson that you teach people? And are you teaching teachers? Are you teaching students?
Good.
Wow. That's an awesome question. Okay. So most of the people that I teach only faculty and staff. That's almost true. There are some student workers. There's some what are they called? Peer advisors that I train, and some groups of people like that. Really, what I'm covering is basic rules of allyship, and things like use your don't assume people's pronouns. And like
I did.
Yeah. Well, and do things like put them in your little Zoom call thing right there. You can edit your thing and put your pronouns in there, and then everybody knows that you are affirming and supportive of trans people. But that's the trans training. So I do a 4-hour allies training at Texas State, and I do a 3-hour supporting trans people in higher ed training. And then I also do a 2-hour bystander intervention training. And Mickey's pulling up content for us again.
Thank you, Mickey.
Awesome. Anyways, Mickey actually was going to present with me. I always have a co-presenter. Usually it's Eli, who I love so much. But Mickey was going to present with me until the COVID thing happened, and now we're in rescheduling. But I've done a number of them Zoom, and anyway, so I do the 4-hour allies training, and just cover you. All the trainings have the same general format. you define the community. So I talk about, you know, who LGBTQIA people are, what the alphabet means, that kind of basic information, and then you share the experiences of the community, and build empathy, etc. And then at the end, you talk about allyship and what it means to be an ally to the community. And then the trans one is focused that way. The bystander intervention training that I do, it's upstander training, was developed by 2 people from Safe Austin. And it's really a training for introverts. And we've all seen the videos on YouTube and whatever else when people are attacking somebody for speaking Spanish in the grocery store, or calling the cops on a black guy standing in his own lobby, you know, things like that. This training is designed to give people the tools so that they can step in and make the person who's under attack feel part of the community and stop the attack. And it's it's a very simple redirection type exercise or process that anybody can pick up and implement. So
that's fantastic. What's that program called again, and where do we find out more about it?
Okay, well, it's called Upstander Training, and while I do it at Texas State, there are other people who have done it. The Center for Diversity and Civic Life is actually where I got my training. Okay. So there are, like I said, there are other people around, or the people who developed the training originally, whose name
when you're training an ally, someone to be an ally, what is the most important takeaway you want them to leave with?
I mean, I don't want to give them one takeaway. I want them to walk away feeling like they want to step up and support the LGBTQI people that they know, the people in their life, and help us push back against discrimination. I want them to not just do one thing. I want them to work towards LGBTQIA inclusion and equity in our world, not even just at the university. So it's not one thing. It's many things, and not every different people get different things out of the presentation. I mean, I'm talking at them, and Eli and I, or Mickey and I are talking at them for 4 hours. You know, hopefully we can get more than one thing across.
What's Eli's last name, and what are his credentials?
It's Eli Doyle, and they them pronouns. And Eli is an advisor in liberal arts, and Eli is awesome. Eli was I met Eli the first. They were part of Feminists United on campus, and Eli and I have presented a number of times since then. We present almost every allies training at Texas State, with a few exceptions. But then we also presented at UT. We did a trans feminism presentation, and so that was super awesome. Yeah, lots of things.
Can you break down, because there are going to be some viewers who are not aware of what the queer alphabet is. I know a lot of folks who think the Q is questioning, and I like to tell them that there's no questioning once you're part of the alphabet. So could you break it down for them?
Sure, of course. So lesbian, gay, we're pretty much on board with that, I would assume. You have bisexual, and most of us can imagine what that is. It is not slutty. It is not somebody unwilling or unable to make a decision. It is somebody who knows that they can love another person without regard for their genitals. And so bisexual. And then you've got LGBT, transgender. So you're a transgender person who has a gender identity that does not match the gender assigned at birth. And so for me, I came out, the doctor pointed at me and said, boy, and he was wrong. So if you want to know more about that, go do the TED Talk because I talk all Q. So queer is the way that is the what we usually think about when we hear the word Q. I will say that, Susie, we do often include people who are questioning. At the university, people are often searching for themselves. And I think that that's awesome.
I think that's awesome too. I just don't know that particular Q is questioning, but that's my own.
You can put a couple of them in there. Right? Just stacking them is what we're doing. We're Q squared. We should.
Add dimensionality to the whole thing. Yeah.
That would be
exactly.
Oh my gosh, it would be almost like a math equation at that point.
Some people think it's already almost like a math equation.
So we're at I.
There was a time
intersex.
There was a time when queer was used, it was a pejorative, an insult thrown to hurt.
That's true.
How did the change occur?
I
would say fairly recently, wouldn't you, Jessica?
It is relatively recently. It was reclaimed. It first came, it was really, I think, the 90s when queer studies became a big and accepted course of study at universities. But over time, now when I speak to students, they more often than not will just say they're queer. They're not putting when you identify with being queer, when you think about gay, or you think lesbian, or think bisexual. If you're queer, those are all boxes I'm not willing to go in. And I actually think that it's more than that. I think that queer is a battle cry. Queer is me saying, who I am and who I love is none of your business, and you need to stop asking about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm definitely picking up from my daughter and kids of her Gen Z generation. Yeah, it's just like, can we just live? Thank you. Can we just be? And it's none of your damn business. So
yes, exactly.
I just find so I'd echo that.
That's how I identify as queer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
I as I was finding myself, I wouldn't describe myself at this point as questioning. I think I was far past questioning. I was well into certainty, but I certainly was part of the alphabet. As I was, am I a lesbian? Who do I love? Who am I attracted to? And I will often say I'm a lesbian because I'm romantically attracted to women. Mm-hmm. But I remember I was about to speak at Queer Bomb, which in 2017, it's kind of an alternative pride. It's a pride celebration for people who feel excluded by pride. They're often people of color, queer people. And I was pacing around nervously, trying to just get ready for my talk. And I remember walking out to get some air in the little grassy area just outside of the building. And there's some concrete steps. And on one of the walls, a big concrete wall, they had written the words, "You belong." And that really resonated with me. I never felt like I belonged anywhere. And so, at that moment, I feel like I recognized who my people were.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. That's a great feeling.
It is.
Being seen.
Yes.
Seen and belonging. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. I did a presentation today for a corporation, Macmillan Learning, in conjunction with, I had a co-presenter, KB from UT Austin. And anyway, we did this presentation, and at one point during the presentation, we were asking for feedback on this exercise, and how did this exercise make you feel? And somebody said, "I feel seen."
Mm-hmm.
That's
so
awesome.
it's moments like that. You're like, "Oh my God, thank God I did this."
Yeah. And you've gotten feedback like that for your book too.
I have. It's about 2 weeks ago, I was kind of one of those mornings, those crappy mornings, and I was out of coffee, and so I was in a snit, and I had to go to the office. I didn't want to be there, and I'm a hypochondriac in the middle of a global pandemic, so I'm not getting on an elevator. So that means in a mask, I'm climbing 9 floors to my office. And so I walk down, I can't breathe. I log into my computer, and the first thing I see is this message from this mother of a adult trans kid thanking me for my book and how it helped her connect to her son.
That's so cool. We have some great activists. We have the best activists in this town. I wish we could get together a little bit better.
I
wish we had a center or something.
Yes, we should have a center.
I wonder if we could get a center. I think we should we were up to I.
Yeah. Why don't we put the center in place of Barleavable?
Yes.
Ooh, that is a great idea.
Whatever the name of that place is. Let's call it Frickin' Queer.
All right.
I can see the T-shirt now. I'll work on the logo.
Thank you.
Thank you. That would be great.
There you go.
So, okay, back to the alphabet. We're at I.
Oh.
We got LGBTQ, and we're at I.
I, intersex, people whose visible or not visible, internal or external genitalia. Well, it's going to be visible if it's external, but or not visible internal physical body does not fit typical standards of male or female. And just to continue on with that idea, when you think about intersex and you think about transgender, you have what we're talking about is sex and gender, and those are two different things. They're not connected. And they operate independently. So when we're talking about, when we have conversations in this space, we also need a way to refer to people who are not intersex and not transgender. So if you are not transgender, you are cisgender. And if you are not intersex, you are endosex. Just to be clear, though, cisgender and endosex are not part of the alphabet. So it's LGBTQI, and then A. A usually stands for 2 or often 3 things: agender, asexual, and aromantic. And when we talk about aromantic, it's this further division between of who you're romantically attracted to versus who you may be physically attracted to, or the body you may be physically attracted to.
So we could square the Q and cube the A. This is amazing. We are solving the problems
wasn't
right now.
Wasn't that a song by Eben Ozen in the 80s?
I don't know that. Somebody cue that up. Isn't that the
A-E-I-O-U sometimes? Yeah, Scoop's got to pull that one up for his radio show.
I probably have it.
I know you got to have. I have the vinyl still. Believe me.
Oh my God! I was just going to say it's on the Spotify, but whatever.
Same difference. So, do you have any? Obviously, Pride is almost over this month. We didn't really have any big celebrations. But our actual Pride Week for Austin is in August. What do you think Pride is going to do this year?
I heard that they're not doing anything.
Really?
Wow.
Now, I will say that there is a group of activists, I think led by Quell, and they're doing, they're right now giving away rainbow flags.
Yes.
And then the goal is to get rainbow flags lining the streets of Austin for a week in August, which would be beautiful. I hope
would be. Yeah, it would be. That would be nice.
Jessica, is there in your search for allies, have you come across an ally that really surprised you, that you really would never have expected?
Interesting.
Well, that's a question and a half. Goodness, you guys. I think you guys are ready for cable news. Have I found an ally that surprised me? Yeah, I have. There was a cisgender heterosexual professor at Texas State University, and her name is Kelly Stone, and she stood up for a trans student who was under attack in her class, and she did so boldly and proudly, and in a way that that I was very surprised by. That's she actually was just running for what's a railroad commission, but she didn't make it through the primary. I think she was number 2 though. Number 2 though. Anyway,
she's a professor there at
she was. She's
okay.
At the end, after that controversy, her contract wasn't renewed.
Oh man, that sucks. I hate
kind of an attack, was it? That's kind of interesting.
So there's a national organization, a national conservative organization called Turning Point that has huge funding. And so they ran around and they set up student organizations at all these universities. And then they send the students through trainings on how to get professors in trouble.
Oh,
and
so
this is pretty well documented. They wrote, there was a big article about it in I think higher education. I think the journal's Higher Education. Anyway.
So they get trained to be bullies, basically.
Really, they are, and they're just trying to make an influence on campus politics.
Well, I remember, I guess it was maybe 2 years ago, and you can tell me if that's right and if it's gotten better. There was some anti-queer posts and graffiti at Texas State. Is that right? Did I hear that right? Or
there was a bunch of stuff that happened. I want to just approach. Michelle said sometimes sometimes is also is for ally, and I will say I have heard that a lot, and sometimes people do include A in the alphabet, and I can see why that makes some sense. When you have an ally stand up with you, sometimes there are consequences to that ally for standing up with you. So that seems like they should deserve to be part of the alphabet and part of the community. There's another side to that argument. I hope to be an ally to the Black community, but I would never consider myself Black. So.
Oh, I understand that argument. Absolutely. Exactly. That's exactly right. I'm not going to stand up and speak for Black Lives Matter. I'm not, but I'm right there for them. And I feel the same way about our community. I mean, we need allies.
Right, so you can be a friend to a community without necessarily being part of that community. And really it's hard to be part of that community if you don't have that commonality, right?
And I think that yes. I mean, it's one thing to be, I think there's a definite division there. So.
So if you were going to teach an ally, well, someone who is obviously does not want to be an ally, but they're sitting in your class, how do you reach that person? Or do you just leave it?
I really just leave it and I just go. They're sitting in the room, right?
Right.
Trying to get my lighting. There it is. Anyway, they're sitting in the room. They're at least sitting in the class. At the end of class, we ask them to sign a contract talking about what it means to be an ally at Texas State University. And then when they sign that contract, we give them a placard that looks like it's got a rainbow flag and this ally of Texas State. And then that goes on their door so that when LGBTQI+ students walk around campus, they can see individual doors where they can find support, they can find resources. How do you deal with somebody who showed up in your class? I've had people come to class, and I've had actual LGBTQIA people come to class, and then push back on the need for any training. And that those can be very hard classes. But in the end, we're in the class, and we're in the class for a reason. So if they don't want to be there, they should go elsewhere.
Yes, I like that. Oh my gosh, that's so on this recent decision by SCOTUS, when do you expect to see some real change, some real turnaround, some actual, what am I trying to say, the consequences of this decision?
I think that it's instant. I mean, there was this weird circumstance. So the previous administration had already enacted policies at the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission, that supported trans people and said that any discrimination against them basically said exactly the same thing that the SCOTUS decision said. And that's because the Obama administration asked the Justice Department which way they thought that case law was pointing, and that's what it was. And so they enacted it. And so then the EEOC, even just months ago, was still educating that it was a violation, that firing a trans person or firing a LGBTQI person for who they are was a civil rights violation. But then at the same time, the new Justice Department comes in, and they're arguing on the opposite side of the case. And so you have the federal government, two different arms of the federal government advocating or arguing against each other on these cases.
Right. And
so
go ahead.
So when's it going to be in effect? It's kind of in effect already. It's just all of a sudden we won't have the Justice Department arguing against us.
We hope.
I suspect that, given past performance or lack of performance by the conservatives, that the issue isn't going to actually go away so much as they're going to be concentrating on the small companies that aren't covered. So do you think that will become a problem?
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I can speculate that. I think that what we're going to see is more and more laws, or more and more civil protection or protections in that area. That's what I'm reading. That's what the pundits are generally saying. They're saying that there's going to be a cascade of court decisions protecting LGBTQIA people. That doesn't mean that the discrimination is over. It doesn't mean that all of a sudden it's all going to stop. We've also seen Supreme Court's decisions saying that businesses don't have to serve trans people. That's just a form, or LGBTQIA people. That's a form of discrimination. That's a denial of access to the economy. That's the same as hanging a sign out. You can't hang a sign out saying that you're not going to serve a group of people because of who they are. That's not acceptable.
Well, it was until just recently.
Well, no, I mean it shouldn't be. How about that?
Yeah, it shouldn't be. Hey, on the dissenting justices, the dissent that they wrote, it seemed basically they said that the framers of the original Equal Rights Amendment, or whatever it was at the time, had no concept that this kind of thing would ever be included, and that's why they dissented, is that there's no way that the framers would have thought that this would have covered LGBTQ folks. So that makes me think of the Constitution. I mean, are we supposed to say, oh, well, the framers didn't have that in mind? I think it was purposely written to be ambiguous so that people can, and I, you know, that was my feeling about this law too. I don't understand.
We can turn it around and say, you know, the people who wrote the Second Amendment didn't expect that the AK-47 would be one of the rights to the arms that you can bear. You know, maybe we should limit it to muskets. Yes,
well, the dissent to me was just a little bit. It didn't hold water for me at all, and I was surprised at the two who, you know, Gorsuch and Roberts, who voted along. I mean, it was astounding.
I had read, you know, so there were a lot of people very concerned because when they were arguing these cases, the justices asked about bathrooms 13 times or something like that. Wow. And bathrooms were not even part of the discussion. They were not included. There was no decision that was not going to affect anything. So why are they even talking about bathrooms? Everybody was all freaked out. They're like, oh my God, what's going to happen? And so I think it was a pretty big shock that we got particularly like a 6-3 decision.
Yeah, that was real lopsided.
Yeah.
We don't get those anymore. We haven't for a while. And I feel like we're trending towards the opposite way, you know? So
yeah, I kept reading that decision and I kept like trying to check if I was hallucinating or something. Am I really seeing who voted what? It was amazing. Yeah.
It was jaw-dropping. But I wonder at what odds this puts the court with the Trump administration. I know Trump said, you know, this is the decision that was made. He even called it a powerful decision, which he calls everything powerful. So I don't know what that means.
He really got some sort of a lack of powerful in his life.
It was the best decision ever.
It was huge. It was a huge best decision.
Huge. Yes, it was huge.
It was a beautiful decision.
He likes to be best. It's a be best kind of a thing.
That's right.
Okay, everybody knows Trump's weird.
We can keep going. I mean, this.
No. That's okay. He gets enough attention. But back to the decision. So obviously, I think John Roberts was a huge slap in the face to the current Republican administration. And I hate finger quotes, but I have to use them because this is not the Republican Party that anyone, I think, who I know recognizes. I think that real Republicans wouldn't have a problem with this at all.
I know a lot of Republicans that don't. And so, you know, when you particularly, you know, in Texas, when you think Republican, a lot of people who are Republicans are actually libertarians. And even though libertarian, if you follow the libertarian ideology, they should have no problems.
Exactly. No? That's precisely right. Still identify, I think, as Republicans. So they're still in that camp, I guess. I don't know. I guess we'll see when everyone votes. If everyone votes. If
anybody votes without catching COVID.
With the mail-in ballots.
Oh my God. Christine Mann is a political candidate. I'm pretty sure that, I hope I get this right. She was sending out safe voting kits to people. Is that not awesome? Is that like the best idea ever? She's sending out like masks and gloves and like little things of.
That is cool. Does she have a place where people can donate to that?
I don't know. Yes, you can. You can go to her website and you can buy 3 kits or 5 kits that get sent out.
Brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic. Do you know her website?
It's Christine. I hope it's Christine Mann.
If not, we'll just post the correct one afterwards.
I'm sure John's on it right now.
I'm checking.
Yeah, I knew he was on it.
My God.
How many of these ally trainings do you do a semester?
I do two. Well, okay, so I do different ones, right? So the one I was going to do with Mickey was direct to a department, so direct to the library. And we usually ask that specific departments have at least a dozen people in those. We've been doing them I do also do them through professional development. I do 2 LGBTQIA trainings a semester, 1 trans training, and 1 standard training. And actually, we're just working on a unintended bias training, an implicit bias. I'm working on that with some. I don't even know how I got on this team. These people are so freaking amazing. Like, oh my God, what happened? But
please.
No, listen. Okay. But the point is, we've been working on that. We're going to launch it, and then the COVID thing happened, and now we're doing it next fall sometime. Or that was the theory. I don't know.
Because some of these trainings, I mean, maybe there's more. We're having to do Zoom anyway, but could this be packaged online? That would be kind of awesome.
We do.
Or is it already there?
The last 2 allies trainings we did were Zoom trainings. One of them had 60 people in it. The day before freaking Memorial Day weekend, in the afternoon, we had 60 people come to an allies.
Wow.
Yeah, that was amazing, and it was a great training. It went so well.
That's great.
You mentioned unintended bias training. Can you flesh that out a bit? How do you define unintended bias?
Well, right. So kind of by default, our body subconsciously classifies things, right? We make subconscious decisions. We make, we do things without thinking about them. And so the point of implicit bias training or unintended bias training is to help you begin to identify what those things are. Because even if it's not something you meant to do, you may have bias towards a group of people. And we all know that we do. It's built into us. The way to get around that, the way to stop that, is to learn to recognize your bias and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to make those decisions. I'm going to make a different one.
I think we all need those classes, honestly. I mean, not just in school. It was like Mackie was saying, there's got to be, it would be nice for, just general folks to be able to go do that. And you said there was a place.
Well, so for the implicit bias ones, there's a couple of really good online classes, including an implicit bias test. You can go take a test. You'd have to Google it. Somebody can Google it and put it in the picture.
Yeah, no, I saw that. And there's one, it's like a written one first, and then you do it just by pictures, and you just tap on the pictures, and it tells you who you're implicitly biased against. Yeah,
it's true. And there's some people who are critical of it because you may get different results different days. But it's attempting to read into your psyche, cut it some slack.
Yeah. Well, and also consider, I mean, it's not only how we're enculturated, but I'm pretty convinced sometimes, like, sometimes you'll meet somebody and then they'll be nice to everybody around you, but they're unpleasant to you, just in general, right? And I'm convinced it's because it's like your hairstyle or the tone of your voice reminds them of some trigger of something that happened, that kind of thing. So it's like a constant dance, keeping your awareness and openness and seeing where your bias is,
sometimes maybe you just look like somebody who was mean to them.
Exactly.
Right.
You could be like the most, swell person on the planet, but they're like, nah, Yeah.
Exactly.
Well,
Mother Teresa looks like Jeffrey Dahmer. We got a problem.
I have to confess that I do have a bias against men with Cheeto orange complexion and funny hairdos. But that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have a problem with facial hair.
You do?
Kind?
You don't?
Is there a certain?
Thank you.
Just fuzzy facial hair.
Well, I have a thing about like just a mustache.
Oh, yeah.
You know, yeah. So, but
you like the really big, thick ones?
Like the 1970s gay guy ones. Those are awesome.
I remember a guy telling me one time when I showed up with a mustache, he said, only cops have mustaches.
See what happens?
What are you doing?
Reflective glasses.
Can I ask one? I know we're getting down to time, but I would
5
like your
minute
thoughts.
warning.
I'd like your thoughts, Jessica, on J.K. Rowling.
Oh my God!
I'm.
Did I jump the gun?
No, you didn't. It's fine. Frickin' J.K. Rowling. It's.
Well, hey, can you tell us first what a TERF is?
Yes, I will. I'm just trying to catch up. I'm emotionally triggered.
Sorry.
I feel like my it's the little animal that my Patronus died. That's what it feels like.
But did she call you a muggle or something?
I have this trans friend who comes into town from Houston all the time, and she refers to all people who are not trans as muggles.
That's hilarious.
And I don't know.
But she's gonna have to stop doing that. Now she's gonna have to stop.
Maybe I just think I kind of feel like J.K. Rowling. So let me tell the backstory.
Yeah.
Okay. The backstory is J.K. Rowling's penned this big article that was very transphobic, very discriminatory against trans people. And she is a trans exclusionary radical feminist, which is just it's a feminist who does not accept trans people.
Wants to tell you how to be a woman.
Exactly. And she seems to define a limited criteria of what it means to be a woman. So she has now been identified as a TERF, a trans exclusionary radical feminist. So, but you know, so many, when we think about who her stories appealed to, we think about people who, feel ostracized or feel, etc. And so here we have a population that feels ostracized and othered, and the author of the books othered them. I mean, who knew it was J.K. Rowling's locking us under the stairs?
Under the stairs.
That's messed up. So, well put. But in the same token, right? She wrote the stories and she released them into the world, and now they're no longer all hers. Now they are the things that we identify with as we read them. Yeah. We read these stories and we connect them to events in our lives, and the stories become more than they were when she wrote them.
It's a question of, once again, separating the art from the artist, I guess.
Yeah.
And we're really, really having to deal a lot with that lately.
Right?
What is up with the artists?
I know.
Come on, you guys.
I know that the gender. I've been watching a list of my trans and queer art friends. They're all getting selected to be part of the Gender Unbound Art Fest. Which happens in the fall.
Good.
And that there are a list of people who are very involved in that. Drew Riley and Rocky Lane. Drew is the driving force, but that art festival has been going on for years, and
Maggie and I are part of a co-op that last year sponsored Gender.
Yes, we did.
Oh, good. That's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
We did a live simulcast from there.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Cool.
Walk around with your Zoom cameras and show the art.
We'll just tape GoPros to our heads. And,
Yes.
Let's wait to see if the COVID's going to kill us all first.
Yeah. That. We can have
my guess is it's going to be a virtual.
Yeah.
I don't know that for sure, but that's just I think that's a safest guess.
But we could do we could do simulcast where we bring some of the artists in and we're interviewing them. It's kind of like they're coming into the interview room at South by Southwest or whatever, we could
Zoom them in. Put them in a Zoom room.
Do you remember those tennis shoes, the Zoom tennis shoes?
I don't.
You would go and then make the Z. Ah, they were so cool.
I missed that trend.
I was looking at the heels. I'm sorry. I wasn't the tennis shoe girl.
I was the tennis shoe girl. I was the tennis shoe tomboy for sure.
I can see that.
I need to let everybody know we have reached the end of our hour
it's fun.
just about here, and it has been great.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I appreciate it. And thank you to those who also participated, Michelle and Mickey. And we, yes.
I was reading off the names with you. I don't know why.
You what?
I was reading off the names with you and like in chorus.
That's because we're just alike. Now my echo is going off right now, and she's telling me that we have to go.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. It was a great session.
Great.
Thanks, Jessica.
Great. Thank you.
Talk to you later. Bye.
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 Good night.
Good night.
Night.